We're going to take a passive stretch for the hips and turn it into an active stretch with the goal of hopefully improving the flexibility of the hips and the passive mobility of the hip joints. We're going to be stretching into hip abduction, which is pulling the femurs away from the center of your body. We're going to be moving in and out of that stretch. We're going to be moving the spine in that stretch, and we're going to be rotating the femurs or the thighs in that stretch as well. So this can be a pretty intense stretch. I want you to have some yoga blocks or something that you can place your hips on to relieve some tension that you may feel in that stretch position. We're going to get into a deep range of motion. We'll be there for a while. So we always want to move nice and slow. Less is more with this one. This can be pretty intense if this is new for you. So always, if it gets to be too much, take a break and then come back into it. All right, and let's get started. So I'm going to use a yoga block underneath my hips. We're going to start in a hands and knees position, and we're abducting both legs at the same time, meaning we're pulling the legs away from the center of your body. What we're going to try to do is almost slide into like a split with your knees bent at 90 degrees. So you're going to slowly inch those knees wider apart and bring the hips down to your surface, or if you feel pretty stable, you can just keep those hips away from the floor. So we're going into this stretch. You can come down to the forearms here. We're going to take a little while to get into this stretch before we start moving in and out of this position. Now, if I don't have the yoga block here, I'll crash to the floor. So I'm showing you in a moderate range of motion for my hips. So we want the knees to be bent at 90 degrees, toes facing out. If that's a lot on your knee joint, if you're feeling some pulling here, you can relax the foot and place the top of the foot on the floor. So whatever is most comfortable for your knees. We want the knees to be straight up from the hips. We want to try not to let those knees go behind the hips too much. So you may have to come out of the stretch a little bit, scooch those knees forward, and then get back into that stretch position. We're once again just holding here with each inch that you get further into that stretch. We're trying to exhale and release tension. So we want the hips to be nice and passive here. So we're not gripping in this position. That's why we're going to stay here for a little while before we start moving in this position. So this is our passive stretch, right? We're just kind of hanging out in this frog stretch. We've got those knees straight out from the hips, knees bent at 90 degrees. Let's talk about the spine. We want to try not to round the spine too much here. We want to almost stick the tailbone out behind you slightly. That's going to increase the stretch that you're feeling. But like I said before, less is more. We want the spine to be isolated from the hip stretch. So if you need to come out of it a little bit so that you can really extend that spine, stick that tailbone out behind you, let's go for that. We want to make sure that the hips and the spine are isolated from one another. If you're really far down in this stretch, you can also take your forehead down to the ground. The only thing that we'll need to change from here is you'll need to come up when we start doing our cat-cow spine movement. Okay, so we're in this stretch trying to release tension from those hips, making sure that the tailbone is sticking out behind you. You've got that anterior pelvic tilt. First thing we're going to do is we're going to shift in and out of this stretch, seeing if we can get a deeper stretch, and then we're just going to come out of it. So we're pulling into a deeper stretch, pushing out of that deeper stretch. So you're going to try to sit those hips back towards the heels. Here we go, pulling into a deeper stretch. If you're on a yoga block, it might kind of tilt back a little bit. That's okay. Just try to keep contact with the yoga block with your hips. And then we're going to push down into the floor with those feet to shift those hips forward out of that stretch. And we're going to do that again, pulling into a deeper stretch, deep breaths here. You might just move 1 millimeter, and that's okay. Then we're going to drive the feet down to come out of it. So we're just shifting the pelvis and the spine back and forward. This is our last time getting into a deeper stretch here. And then push the feet down to come out of it. Now, see if that allowed you to get a little bit deeper into that stretch. We're going back to that 90-degree position here. And we're going to start some isometrics. So once again, turning this passive stretch into an active stretch, you're going to think about shortening the floor between those legs. So you're squeezing the floor together between the legs. And then we're going to pull the floor apart between the legs. So we're driving the heels and the knees into the floor, but trying to spread that floor. Hopefully that will engage the glutes and help you get deeper into that stretch. And then let's do that again. Push the floor together, squeeze between the thighs and the heels. Pushing those knees down into the floor. You'll feel your inner thighs engage here. And then spread that floor apart between the knees and the heels, feeling the glutes engage here. Take a deep breath. And we're going to do that one more time, pushing in, in, in. This is teaching the tissues of the hip capsule to be able to produce force in this stretch. So once you can produce force in the passive range of motion, which is your stretch, then you can truly start to own that range of motion. Last time, let's lengthen the floor between the knees, which therefore increases your active mobility as well. And then let's release tension in that stretch. We're staying here, almost ready to come out of it, right? We've done our isometrics. We've shifted in and out of that stretch. Now let's start to move the spine on top of this position. So if you can move the support you have underneath the hips, then go ahead. If you're on your forehead, you can come up to the forearms. And we're going to keep the hips nice and still here, well, in the same position, but we're going to go through anterior and posterior pelvic tilt, moving that spine in this position. So this may be more difficult than your regular cat-cow, and that's because your hips are in a different orientation. Then we're going to round that spine. And then let's go back to extension, tipping that tailbone out behind you, looking up. And back to flexion, scooping that tailbone under. Driving those heels down into the floor, rounding that spine. And let's do that one last time. Extend, looking up. This will help you feel a deeper stretch in the hips. And one more time, rounding that spine, pushing down through the floor. And release tension. Okay, so now we're all the way in this really, really deep stretch. We're going to try to internally rotate the leg on top of this movement. So we're adding internal rotation. So if I have a thumbs up on the top of my thigh, if I go towards internal rotation, I'm going to turn that thumbs up down towards the floor of that left leg, lifting that left foot and shin. Hold that. Try not to let the hip move, right? We want that hip to stay still as the foot lifts. Bring that leg down, and then let's switch, lifting that right foot and shin. As you internally rotate, you may feel a stretch on the opposite side. That's pretty normal. And bring it down. Let's go 2 more each way. Left leg internally rotates to lift up. Keep those hips nice and still. Driving the knee into the floor, turning the top of the thigh down towards the floor. And rest. Let's switch to the right leg, internally rotating that right side. Turning the top of that thigh down towards the floor. Keep breathing. Take a deep breath. Let's do 1 more each way. Left hip internally rotates. Hold. So we're rotating from this deep stretch already. So this is going to be really difficult, more difficult if we were just doing our regular internal rotation from a standing position. And rest. Okay. Now very slowly, we've been in this position for a while. We're going to slowly come out of that stretch and release that tension. This is really great to do after a lifting session or post-workout so that we are working into a full deep range of motion. If you are a little limited in that hip mobility, this is really great to do before your lifts. Let's say you're getting into sumo squats. This is really great to do to really open those hips so that you can get the most out of those sumo squats. If you have any questions about this movement, drop them in the comments below. Thanks so much for joining. If you found this helpful, please share it, like, and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.